let's say 14.3 billion years from Outer Wilds. Throughout that game, we hear instruments like the banjo, as an example, that are homey, are very, not rustic, but rural. They have this sort of natural warmth to the sound. I mean, like, this is a whole separate conversation about like what instruments produce certain sounds and why do some things sound sad. The banjo becomes the central emotional tie throughout the entire piece, right? So when we hear it in 14.3 billion years, we are affected by it because essentially the banjo has been with us since the start of the journey.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tell Me About, the show where I've got a lot of questions, and thankfully, I know the people on the internet who have the answers. Today's guest is one that I discovered just because I love video game music. I love how much music can take a scene, be it in a video game or a movie or just in life, and make it better. And so, as I enjoy media in general, I like to go on the internet and snoop on how people react to the same things I love. I'm sure you've done it as well. And one of those people took my breath away. Just a complete master of the craft of dissecting great music from video games and then telling me why it's as awesome as I know it to be. And that is why today's guest is Marco Meatball. Thanks for joining me.
I'm so excited to be here. There's an ant crawling on my wall. That's disturbing. Anyway. What an intro.
Now, if it had like ant music, like
exactly, yes,
it'd be funny. Yeah, it'd be fun. Not disturbing.
Hello, thanks for having me, Jesse. I'm really happy. I ruined that for you. That was terrific, by the way. It was like watching a master work.
Spoiler, we talk frequently. This isn't like a first meeting kind of thing, so I expect friend vibes from this entire video.
Yes.
I'm really excited to have you on because I want to talk about music and the way music affects all the things we love, but more importantly, the fact that video game music isn't just like MIDI music anymore. Even though some of that is fantastic, it really is, Academy Award winning style tunes we're getting. You come from sort of a very musical space. How did you get into the world of, video game music?
Well, gosh, I mean, honestly, video game music was kind of the doorway for me to like kind of even realize that I had like a musical ear or a desire or interest in music at all. When I was a kid, Final Fantasy VII was like, I think the turning point for me where it wasn't on the Super Nintendo, like literally we immigrated from Italy to the United States. My grandparents at our homecoming handed me a Super Nintendo. I didn't speak a lick of English. And so I'm just sitting there playing with my like
welcome
second
to America.
Cousins. Yeah, welcome here. Let me ruin your life forever. And literally, like I've played video games since that day for 31 years at this point.
So really, it's video games led to music then for you.
For me, it was Nobuo Uematsu. Yeah, that was when I discovered Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy 7, 8, and especially 9. I had these piano albums of jazz renditions or like classical piano renditions of Final Fantasy music, and that's it. That was it. I get to the point where like the CD would become scratched because I'd listened to it so much in the CD player. Yeah. So that was the thing that kind of propelled me into opera and into music. And my mother also was like, you can't sit on the couch. I remember this because I was like in the middle of Fisherman's Horizon in Final Fantasy VIII. And she's like, you have to go to theater camp. Like, I can't have you being here at home all day playing Final Fantasy VIII. It was the same year Final Fantasy VIII, like around there, came out. And so that was what propelled me into theater, was my mom forcing me to stop playing video games and get out of the house and touch grass. So, but I would attribute a lot of that sort of at the same time period for why I ended up going into music.
That's hilarious, because I always assumed you went into music and were doing operatic-y things, and then were like, boy, this music sure is dandy. In fact, I'm learning the exact opposite. You were inspired by games to get into music that, I think what I'm learning is you just really wanted to sing the choral parts of the Sephiroth song, One Winged Angel. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you just wanted to do that. And you were like, how can I do that but for real as a job.
I mean, what was weird is that like I remember when I fought Save for Sephiroth for the first time and like entered, I remember actually my parents were watching me and we were hurrying up to go out to dinner and I was like, Mom, you don't understand. Like this is like the fight of my life. This is the most important thing I could be doing right now. She's like, turn that off. And I'm like, Mom, like I listen to the music. It's so tense, and she didn't care. So eventually I did it again and beat it. But yeah, no, I've actually.
You can pause your world-ending fight. It'll be there when we get back.
You don't understand. Yeah, no, but so basically video games, my opera life was really stressful and really about halfway into it, I kind of realized that it was actually slowly destroying my life and emotionally and had a lot of anxiety and stuff. And video games were the constant. PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. I mean, like everything. I mean, one summer I was up at a summer opera fest program where you would be there for 3 months, and I literally lugged the TV and the PlayStation 4 because it was the year that Witcher 3 came out, and I was like, there ain't no way that I'm going to summer opera fest and not bringing the Witcher 3, and I just remember like playing the Witcher 3 with like 15 opera dudes just around me watching, like using Igni or whatever, and blowing smoke from the candles and shit as Geralt. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So I was only an opera singer for 14 years, but video games has been since I was 7. So it's kind of been my constant companion.
That's amazing. That not only was it there for you in the beginning, but you dragged video games along with your entire life.
Dude.
You were like, no, I'm not leaving this behind.
My last gig in France, I was alone in like the middle of like Limoges, which is like the French capital of porcelain, if I recall, and like porcelain plates. They have a porcelain museum. And I was living in DC at the time, and I had no one spoke English. It was a tiny town in France. So I was playing the Division 2 while living in DC while I was in France. And yeah, man, like I dragged that PlayStation came with me everywhere.
So you got out of the opera world.
Yeah.
And what was the thought process of like, I guess I'll make some videos on the internet?
My dad had passed, and I don't know, like I'd always listened to video game music. Like Kind of Salvation was one that I loved. I used to listen to it all the time. At the time, that was when TikTok wasn't quite what it is now. It was a little bit more like grassroots. It felt nice to start. I'd made a lot of videos on TikTok, and I had sort of dabbled with like talking about music because at the time I was very invested in Final Fantasy 14. So I had this idea of like I remember writing it down, going through like every single OST from Stormblood and like talking about my favorites or like whatever. And then I don't know. I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Let me make a video on Kind of Salvation. And that was that. And then I remember we went to go pick up my dog, and I was like, what is happening here? Did I leave a YouTube comment somewhere? Why am I getting these notifications? And they were on that Kind of Salvation video. And I was like, uh-oh, this is a thing. And I just had copious amounts of time, just like sad. And I just doubled down.
That is also how I found you as well. When you were making Final Fantasy 14 content and you were reacting to songs from it. Admittedly, there was that time sort of during the COVID-y period of Planet Earth where a bunch of new creators came online, and with them were a lot of people playing Final Fantasy 14 at the time. It was that weird Shadowbringers ended, Endwalker was starting, the hype was building for the end of that story, and a lot of people were discovering the music for the first time, which is, no matter what you think of anything in that game, the music rocks. Continuously, nonstop, is amazing. And so, going to see people react to various songs with no knowledge of what that song means or represents or what it is, but just reacting to the song itself was something I very much enjoyed. And yeah, you happen to have quite a few videos, so I was like, take me away. And so I got to watch it. I love every minute of it. I'm a giant emotional vampire when it comes to content on the internet. I want to see how other people react to this and express the things they hear in this song that I don't have the words to express. I don't know what that is. Like, the best you can get me to do is be like, yep, Soken loves his leitmotifs. Like, that's the best you can get out of me, right? But you, when I watch you, I'm like, okay, this guy actually knows a thing about music and is commenting on music, and I'm like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
You know what I didn't realize when I started. Like, how many games do you think, Jesse? I mean, you've been in the sort of in the biz for decades, a decade plus. How many years?
20 years at this point.
Oh my sweet God. Okay, so 20 years. Yeah. So like, you know, how many games in those 20 years would you say that you've like loved, or let's say even before you started content creation, how many games did you know about? Let's do this. How many games did you know about before you had started content creation?
Before this, I would imagine a fraction of all the games out there. Now, I would say I'm aware of every game, and I have played the exact same amount I played as a kid. Probably, like, fraction-wise of the total amount of video games.
Yeah. Well, I only bring that up because, like, I realized very quickly how little, even though I called myself a gamer, I felt I was a gamer, and it was a person who loved video games. And I always was, like, had my pulse on the industry and watching reviews and stuff. It turned out I didn't know jack. It's weird because music was a constant every day. It's not like I sat down and I was like, oh God, the surging melodies of the, beautiful song from Nier lifted me away and I cried. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted from my day at opera place or a gig or opera academy. Let me sit down and play through MGS5 because I love Kojima and love Metal Gear or whatever. So when I started, I kind of was just picking up the what people were asking, because they were like, oh, you got it. And this was around the crest of Elden Ring. So Elden Ring was huge. It was like right at the like tipping point of the zeitgeist, where it was like, oh, this is a big deal. People are playing it. So I kind of just, people were like, you got to do Regal Ancestor Spirit. You got to do Elden Beast. And I remember at that time I was filming like at 9:00 at night. And I remember I had just eaten dinner and I was just sitting there listening to Elden Beast from Elden Ring, the final boss theme, and I just was like, whoa. It was like 9:40. I literally was falling asleep, but it looks like I was really concentrating.
Do you find that it's beneficial to have the opera singer reacts and then insert song? Because I imagine in a lot of people's minds, it's kind of like the same thing when you see an image of a reaction video where it's like a bunch of very obviously younger teenagers reacting to a song from 1994.
Ideally, people do get in the doorway that way. And over the years, it's like, I also, I would love to move away from reaction content, but I don't really know what that looks like. And also, I kind of like just pushing play. I don't want to sit down and have to write a script for every single thing.
Continuing with that thought, though, the connection between an emotion or a moment or some memory and music is very important. I mean, it's why people have that sort of music isn't good these days, because when I was a kid, it's like, yeah, you have a lot of emotional memories tied to those songs, and so that's why they're so good to you. But it's the same thing with video games, where you have a video game and there's a moment in the game and it hits you like a brick and you're like, wow, that song's amazing and this will stay with me forever, So how do you pick up on the emotions of a song? Or sometimes it's just really hard.
Well, I think, there's a couple very clear-cut ideas there. I mean, I think, obviously, instrument choice, is it a major key? Is it a minor key? Is it happy? Is it sad? Are there a lot of...
Can you explain that really quickly? Like, just... I follow because I watch your videos, but in general, when you talk about, like, a minor chord and, you talk about, like, what instruments are used to set up what emotions, can you explain the process there of, like, a composer might think about when writing something?
Yeah, well, I mean, based on my understanding as a non-composer, in conversations with composers, the idea is if a person is trying to, the goal of a composer is to get an audience member, let's say audience just for the sake of theater, and the goal of a composer is to get an audience to connect to the story and to the plot. And so their job is to align us with what's occurring visually. And that, whether it's opera or video games. And so they will choose certain things to deliver on that commitment. So like, let's say 14.3 billion years from Outer Wilds. Throughout that game, we hear instruments like the banjo as an example that are homey, are very not rustic, but rural. They have this sort of natural warmth to the sound. I mean, like, this is a whole separate conversation about like what instruments produce certain sounds and why do some things sound sad inherently because of the way that they're, I don't know, like it's some of it's magic that would probably be interesting to have like a composer on, because like for me, it's like, so my job as an opera singer was to be a vessel. This is so poetic, but bear with me. My job was to be a vessel for the composer to then get the audience to feel what the composer wanted through my performance, emotion, and thinking about the piece. And so when I hear, for instance, a banjo, I don't know why Andrew Pralo chose the banjo, but like that's just the instrument choice that he did. So then when it cycles back near, I don't want to spoil it, but when we circle back to 14.3 billion years, we start with the banjo, which is the very first thing we heard at the very beginning of the game with Timber Hearth, and even I think the main theme has banjo in it. It's like, okay, well, the banjo then, and all the other instruments, the banjo becomes the central emotional tie throughout the entire piece, right? So when we hear it in 14.3 billion years, we are affected by it because essentially the banjo has been with us since the start of the journey. So essentially when a composer chooses, okay, is there tension in this? Is this a battle? Okay, is it fearful? Okay, maybe we do creepy strings, whatever, that's the official term. If we, you're not going to have a happy song in Dead Space because that world is devoid of life. It's devoid of light. It's devoid of a sense of a sense of hope. So everything in that is all compressed, and so naturally you want to create a sound based on what you're seeing, but also how you feel thinking about it, of stress, of compression. Does that make sense?
Yes. That make sense? Oh, absolutely.
And music. And it's actually funny because I've heard some people who have actually turned music off because they don't want to be told how to feel or think when they're experiencing something. Because music is essentially it's kind of the subtext of a character. So like if you're interacting with a character, let's say in Clair Obscur, and you're hearing a theme, well, like what does Verso's theme mean when he's speaking? Because it's obviously full of nostalgia, it's full of sadness, it's kind of got that weird music box quality. Like, why would it ba-dee-da-dee, da-dee-da-dee? The thing is, we don't know. And maybe even Laurent, the composer, doesn't know. But the goal is to emote and connect it to the emotion, which is why I get kind of pissy when people are like, "Well, you're not a composer. What the hell you know?" And it's like, well, dude, I'm not stupid. I mean, we hear emotion. Now, I can't tell you how the chord structure is broken down, but to me, like, it's way more interesting that it's something that all of us can do, connect to music emotionally, whether it's through context or out of context. We all have this capability and this superpower to feel. And I think sometimes people want to watch composers, I mean, out of genuine interest, of course, but also because they want to be othered, because it's like, oh, that person knows more than me, therefore I want to watch that. Whereas it might not be as interesting to watch someone that's like, hey, bro, you can do this too. I just have a little bit of a leg up because I have direct experience doing it for a ton of time. You know what I mean?
Not only do I know what you mean, let me stress to everyone out there, you really don't need to have any bona fides to be in the, like, I like things, I'm going to react to them space. My favorite reactor is this guy who just gets high and listens to music. And I must stress to you, he's the funniest video I've ever watched in my entire life. It's when, for the first time in his life, I think it's either Mozart or Beethoven. And he puts it on, and he just like, and it washes over him, and he genuinely starts to tear up. And I'm like, yo, it got him. This is crazy. And that's like, he had no experience with classical music. He was just, I'm gonna listen to this and see what happens. And he like just looks at camera, he's like, you all trying to make me cry? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. It was great. And so, yeah, I don't think you need to have any, like, you don't need to play Final Fantasy XIV, for example, to understand what a song from that would be trying to get across. You don't need to play, I don't know, like Genshin Impact to understand some of the bangers from that game, even though surprises me there are bangers. But I imagine it's the exact same way when people are like, Final Fantasy 14 has this song? I imagine it's the same thing. It's so funny to me that you can hear music and it can set off all these emotions, but at the same time, it can be used kind of against you, where a composer, or in some cases the director or whatever, could pick a song that's so tonally different from what's going on that it also establishes some kind of weird sense memory in you where you're like, oh yeah, that wacky song that played during that scene that had no right being there, but now it's permanently up here. Do you have any experience with that kind of thing where it's like, oh no, why do they play this kid's song when the monster was killing everyone? Like, what's that about?
Well, I don't have anything off the top of the dome, but what I would say is that what I think is really cool about that is the idea of defying expectations and countering essentially what I just said is defying expectations. So I was in a production of Madama Butterfly by Giacomo Puccini. Have you ever seen that?
I have.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, right? It's beautiful. So Pinkerton is outside of his house and he's waiting for this geisha girl that he's essentially marrying. And normally it takes place, they're talking about the house in the opening 20 minutes. It's like, look at the house. Oh my God, the consulate's coming up. Hey man, what's up? But instead, in a version I was in, we actually did the whole thing inside the consulate. And so she, Chocho-san, the girl, comes into the consulate rather than having everything be in the caseta. The little house is actually a diorama, which I've never seen before. And so that's an example of like taking something, twisting it so that you think it's going to be one thing, but it's actually another. And yet somehow the two, it just makes sense.
There's also a way in which music can absolutely destroy scenes. Sometimes the choices people make can be the wrong one as well. And it takes you out of the scene, and the music alone did that. It wasn't the scene, it was the music that did that, and it changed how I felt about that moment completely. So it can go either way.
Oh, I mean, when I was playing Bloodborne, when you fight the wet nurse Margot, I think her name is, Bloodborne is one of my favorite, probably my favorite FromSoft game, and it's also, it's difficult. And I remember I was actually on the phone when I was fighting that with my mother or somebody, and I was like, oh shit, let me turn off the music. I turned off the music and I beat her in the first try. Why? Because there was no tension. It was just a pattern. And so it's like, oh, okay. But then if you turn the music on, it's like, oh, unless the pattern's complicated, but like in general, like music enhances things to a degree that, but at the same time, an example, so Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has a terrific soundtrack. The medieval stylings and writings, like the religious undertones of it, or overtones, are incredible. But I will tell you that was one of the first games where in the overworld, when I'm riding the horse, I actually turn the music off, because Bohemia in that game is so lifelike that having the music actually pulls focus, and it makes it feel like I don't need this beautiful, like sunshining, beautiful pastoral music when I'm visually seeing the pastoral. And so, there's a conversation that I frequently have, and I actually had with myself while filming an episode of Violet Evergarden today, where it was like, and sometimes seeing not, let me ask you too. Do you ever listen to video game music before experiencing the game?
No.
Right.
Mm-mm. No, it's always like? Tied. That's a solid question. I rarely ever hear music out of context. Does that make sense?
Well, I only ask that because it's a really interesting experience, because music, especially very melodic music, has like with a melody line that's very catchy or you can get easily sucked into it. It kind of has its own roadmap. And I think something that a point of discussion that comes up a lot is the idea of context versus no context. And I've resigned myself to the idea that context is more or less required to really get the fullest scope of how music can enhance a piece of media, whether it's a movie or a game specifically. But the idea is, if we take, let's say you took the Clair Obscur, you played Clair Obscur.
Yes. Yeah.
I had access to the soundtrack a couple days in advance, and so when I was on the treadmill, I was actively listening to not very much because I wanted to kind of experience as a complete package, but I listened to like the first 15 to 20 tracks out of context. And the beautiful thing about listening to music out of context is that you're able to create. The more you listen to something, it's like a forest. But as you're in the forest, you start to like cut down the trees. And the more you listen to something out of any given like specific context, you start to create a roadmap for what the piece sounds like. So then it becomes familiar to you. And then all of a sudden you know the piece. And this is without context. And so the beautiful thing is that then you attach context to it. And then it's like you turn the knob. So the knob was already kind of turned up because you experienced it and allowed yourself to like discover it. And then once you put it in context, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. And so I get into fights with people all the time because it's like, yes, the context. Yes, I know it's important. Yes, I know. But what if we take music out of context and really digest it and really like allow it to be a thing and then attach it to the game? Imagine the depth that your brain would go into, you know? So that's what I advocate for.
I'm curious if there's any music where you heard it, you sort of imprinted this thing of what it was to you, then you experienced the game, and you were like, well, that's not what I thought that was going to be at all.
14.3 billion years, the reference I brought up earlier. That, when I actually heard it in game, people were like, oh man, this is the moment. I watched it and I was like, oh, okay. Meanwhile, when I first heard it, I was crying about the fact that my dad had died from cancer. And so my lived experience with that piece of music was more palpable and more powerful than anything that could have been in a video game. And so whether or not that's to its credit or discredit, but probably to its credit because it's that beautiful of a song. People want to cry about the existentialism of it. I don't want to get into spoilers of it, but like people want to cry about like what it signifies in the game. But personally, I think that the lived experience of listening to it with my own life and my own context is more meaningful. So it's interesting. It's interesting how it's all. I love talking about this stuff because it's so new. It's an impossible YouTube video conversation. I can never have this conversation in a YouTube video because it's just way too complex. But
thankfully, we're having this conversation in a YouTube video, so it'll be all right.
I forgot. You're right. I forgot. I was just having a chat with you about music. You're right. Oh shit.
We'll figure it out. We'll get there in the end. I definitely want to go back, continuing on this line, but go back to, the use of what instruments are chosen or and what note you're playing things. I want to go back and focus on that for a minute because I think that's really important. For example, going back to the banjo, we were talking about how, this banjo, it symbolizes all sorts of things. In my mind, for example, when I hear a banjo, I don't know why, but I imagine it's one person by themselves. I don't know why that is. I'm sure that's media has played a role in that, where I've ingested enough where it's just like a guy playing a banjo and he's very alone. For me, I pick up on those little things like, oh, I understand that must be the intention of that. Whether they mean it or not, that's kind of what I think of. I'm like, oh, a director must have made a choice to be like, well, this is a clue as to what's going on. How do we show that? Hit me with what you got, composer. And the composer's like, I can think of a few things, and then they go from there. But that process of deciding how you want something to sound, can you go over like, well, what does this note give you? Or what is having this, in your song add to the emotionality of it when you are trying to get a point across?
Well, I mean, with my limited knowledge of the compositional structure, I don't want to make it seem like I know more than I do. But I think in the case of that, I mean, we know that key signatures represent certain feelings and emotions. No, not by a hard and fast rule, but like in general, like I forget all the things, but I find it really interesting. It's like the key of D major represents blah, 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 and it's like certain key choices can indicate certain things. Or if we create dissonance and let's say we have a suspension where we're carrying over a note and then resolving. So we have a little bit of tension in that. Like just a tiny bit of while the chords underneath are moving. That creates a certain impetus, a certain like, oh, you feel like the character wants to make a choice, but then they don't, but then they finally just commit to it and then it resolves, right? The way that we do those things, or let's say we we do a diminished chord, and so then we tip downward and we go. Oh wait, oh god, I'm going up, augmented. We go down, we diminish. A diminished chord is automatically going to have more tension than just going down a third or something, right? So again, this is a conversation for a composer, someone who's more well versed in like the ins and outs of. But sometimes even composers, they just go by feel, and that's again, it ultimately it all comes down to feeling, and frankly. In my experience in the opera world, when I was working with modern composers who were writing modern operas, most of them were incredibly structured and incredibly devoid of emotion because they were too busy trying to write something that was academic or something that was structurally interesting and not from a place of emotion.
It's interesting that you said it because there's a lot of, I don't want to say modern music because when I think modern music, I'm still thinking like the 90s, which I'm told was the 1900s now, so that's cool. But
we old, man. I'm 38 this week.
Just keeps happening. I don't know what's
going on. It's like the fall all of a sudden. What the hell?
What the hell that's about? But songs, throughout the spectrum of everything from R&B to alt rock to metal to rap to whatever, they also do those things where it isn't just about emotion, but they play music against you, and they do a lot of fun things where they even lyrically mess with your head. And I've always been a fan of I don't know what you would call it, but it's like not a stutter, it's the expected lyric, but they don't do it. So I'm trying to think of, okay, here's a great example. Oh man, what's the song? This is the story of a girl, that song.
But dude, the other thing too is that they may not even have thought about, they might be like, oh, that sounds cool, let's do that. Right, but like for us as listeners, once we're given that piece of auditory language, we can create, why do you think they did it? You know what I mean? Like that's the beauty of it. Like it's like, well, I think there's a lift there because first of all, it probably sounds awesome to have a lift, but also to have a little bit of a railroad track where we lift and just give it a second. But also it could be, maybe that's a little bit of sadness in that sound, even though it's a peppy, positive song. Maybe it is a story of a damn, like I don't know, like there's so many things you can fill that space with. It's like that's why silence and breath and honestly is some of the best reactions. And actually from people that have even said it to me, I have an undertow reaction where like for the last 30 minutes I don't say a word. Same thing with Clair Obscur. I didn't speak a word for the last 20 minutes of that game. And that's more interesting sometimes than constant conversation, because it's like, okay, like what is that? What is going on in his mind?
You're absorbing it. Yeah, you're taking it in.
But asking questions, people might default to asking questions like, why isn't he saying anything? Wow, this must be really affecting him. Whatever. And not to say like I'm sitting there like, don't say anything. But like the point is that like the questions are the thing that are the most interesting when it comes to listening to a piece of music. Why don't I like something? Like I don't really like the Persona 5 soundtrack except for like 3 tracks. Why? I've been trying to make a video about Persona 5 now for like a year, and I'm first A, afraid, and B, it's like, why don't I like this soundtrack? Is it because it feels like it's trying too hard? And the answer is I don't know, because we don't know. But again, that might be too nuanced.
Yeah, I mean, it also could just be preference. I think everyone,
exactly,
no matter what, has song preference of what you love and what you don't love. Like I'm with you on some songs in Persona 5. I'm like, meh. And other songs like I love and will always love. And I'm like, this song is the same thing over and over and over again. And I just do not care. I love this song. And yeah, it's complete preference, and it's what kind of connects with you in that moment. Exactly. For some reason, you throw in a strong bass line, you've got me from moment one, no matter what.
Meanwhile, I'm like,
what the
anyway.
Yeah.
I love Beneath the Mask as an example. Like, I think that is the crown jewel of that soundtrack. But all the other stuff, Last Surprise and stuff, I can take it or leave it. And a lot of it just feels, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a separate conversation. Don't make the comments, Jesse, the comments! Yeah.
It's too late for you.
I've chosen this life. I'm a pariah.
Let's pick a song. Doesn't matter what song. Okay. Something from a game. And kind of like give me like a breakdown. Obviously, we don't have the music in front of us, but is there something that affected you and you're like, okay, I could talk about this all day? And then like give us the breakdown of that song from like start to finish. Where's it taking us? What's going on in this song?
let's do Kind of Salvation. Funny enough, from Nier Replicant, Nier Gestalt. So funny enough, I've actually never finished that game. So I think I've heard it in context one time at the end of ending. Have you played it?
I've played all the Nier games. They are a trip.
I love Automata. It's like one of my favorite. God, City Ruins. I had City Ruins on the PS4 theme, which, I don't want to turn this into anything unrelated to this, but like, I still can't believe that Sony was like, let's not do themes anymore. Let's just look as corporate as possible on our startup screen. Like, can you give me Paper Boat's PS4 display screen? Can I have my anyway?
First off, I'm totally with you. I had an exclusive Butterfingers Final Fantasy VII Remake skin, and the screen is Tifa sitting on the water tower, and it plays Tifa's theme, but it's fine. But the best part is her hair breaks the fourth wall and goes over the logos of other games. So as you're playing, you cannot see anything because Tifa's hair is blocking it. It's the best thing I've ever had in my entire... It's hilarious. Every time you log in, you're reminded Tifa doesn't care about your other games. It's only Final Fantasy VII. It's hilarious.
Displays, they should come back. Anyway, separate conversation. But I remember City Ruins, I would like sit there and da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. I'd be like, what the is she saying? Am I just, is this English pronounced terribly? Now I'm friends with Emmy, and I was like, oh no, it's a different language called the Chaos language.
It's purposefully gibberish. Yeah. It's like a mismatch of all sorts of languages put together. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so Kind of Salvation to me, without knowing, I mean, I know that kind of like is a no bullcrap kind of character, and she's rough around the edges. And what I love about it, though, and the way that Emmy sings it especially, is there's this femininity and sensitivity right off at the very get. It really feels like it's a piece that is talking about like being unfair or having things, obstacles put in your life that have blocked you from being able to really flourish and trying to make the best of what you have, right? And through that, you also have what is known as a strophic writing, which is why it's kind of like an old school art song, like from the Schubert days, where the music, nothing changes but the words. So the melody is the same, and the piano orchestration underneath or whatever is the same. And so that sort of repetition also, not necessarily and probably not, but even that is like, even though the lyrics change, she's stuck in the same patterns because she can never outrun her life. I don't even know if that's true, right? I just know her from the first ending. Doesn't she get? Yeah, she gets encapsulated in the...
I have no comment on anything about that game because I don't know whether you're right or wrong, wink. And I think it's a very solid read.
Yeah, also the way that she goes up, like that's just like her, like it's almost like talking to her child self and wanting to be like, hey, like adult kind of is like, hey, like let me fix this, let me soothe this, it's okay, like we have not been dealt a good card, I can do this, I can make this better for us. But it's gentle, even though outwardly she's rough, So I find that song is one of these that's like, there are some pieces of music that really just hand deliver. FromSoft Music does this a lot. They hand deliver the emotion. And those are always interesting to me because it's like reading a book. But I always love Viego's theme. No, who's the... Oh, no, Jin. Jin from League of Legends. His song has the gunshots in it. And everything's about 4, and I think it's in 4/4 or whatever. His theme was interesting to me because I read it as someone who was broken, like very on the nose. But then people told me that actually the song was representing him murdering people and like shooting people, and like it was about the artistry of his work, even though he's like twisted and messed up. So that was a time when we were talking about defying expectations earlier, where it was totally off. But that's fun too.
I love that sort of you can read into it what you will. Now I have no real experience with sort of deciphering music, but one of the things when I was a kid, you had Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VI was the game for me, right? And so Over the years, I've beaten Final Fantasy VI numerous times, and Dancing Mad at the End is a song where I have convinced myself, I have no idea if it's real or not, but as you proceed through this sort of like operatic, massive piece that goes on forever, it is building to something, right? Like it's building towards this end fight with Kefka, but when you get to that end fight, one of the things I've always assumed is that there's a moment in that when it's not like right, when it's like not like, oh, we're fighting. There's a moment when the song stops and it gets organ heavy. And in my mind, I always imagine that as the fact that if we are experiencing this song as like the Kefka song, then this is a moment when the nihilist guy realizes like, oh damn, I like that, this really is it. Like the extent of what I'm doing is like I don't exist anymore, which is why it's so like organ heavy, dramatic, like bad guy loses moment, because as a character he is experiencing the full extent of nihilism, which is like, no, you don't exist anymore. I couldn't tell you if that's accurate or not. I didn't compose it, but I think it.
The beautiful thing is that even if you're wrong, who gives a crap? And that's the thing that I think people get hung up about music. It's like, who cares if the context is right? What matters is how you connect to it, because I feel the same way. And maybe someone else is going to say that that's actually when the party really doubles down and there's this moment of like, no, we can do it. And then there's another person that's going to say that that's something else. There's no right or wrong when it comes to interpreting music. There was also World Revolution from Chrono Trigger, the first.
Oh, I love that song. Yeah.
It starts kind of slowly. It's just to say like, damn, we've like traveled the whole world, like a whole times to like get to this point. What is this? What is happening here? You know, like what are we unraveling? Or if you think about it, even Shalah's theme, like Shalah's not a dominant character per se, and yet Shalah's theme is one of the deepest tracks in Chrono Trigger. I mean, to me. So it's like, well, what does that mean? You know, why? Why is it like that? I think one of the things that I struggle with is when I am given context, it's almost like my brain turns off. Like I can't find, I feel like I can tap into the instrumentation and the choices that are made better if I haven't experienced it in context first. Because then experience it in context. I mean, I remember I was listening to Kiki's Delivery Service, the OST. The first time I saw Kiki in the movie, I was like, oh, it's her theme song. Listen to how bright this is. And so like that discovery is so interesting to me. You know, I think we get really hung up on context. Yeah, no, all that to say, like, I think moments of discovery like that happen very frequently still, and I'm so grateful that I haven't lost. Every Friday we do a Patreon live stream where we listen to stuff, and it's all like off the beaten path, like almost nothing mainstream. And honestly, like, you know, it's great because I love that there's 40 plus years of music history, music knowledge that you know, so many games just like get. I mean, even today, I mean, I got to start this series where I like dumpster dive for Steam games, because it's like, you know how many games get made a day, you know how many games get put on Steam, you know how many games don't get the light of day, and I bet you they all have kick-ass music. And it just kind of sucks that like there are so many good composers out there pouring their hearts into, and game devs, as you know, who are pouring their hearts into doing something meaningful, and they don't get noticed, but yet that music can still tell a story and can still move us. Anyway,
I'm so curious about, even though this isn't gaming, I think we both dipped into the world of anime from time to time. While I have no experience with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I did listen recently to the Venta d'Oro, whatever.
Venta d'Oro, yeah. Oh, so good.
And I was like, I don't know what to expect, but very similar to you kind of putting context to things. There are moments in that song where, as I was listening to it, I was like, all right, tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like this is too long to be an intro, like the title screen song. So this must be in the show. And based on what I'm hearing, this seems like JoJo, I guess, is fighting a dude, and then at a certain point, the dude's like, sorry, I'm gonna beat you up, JoJo. And then JoJo does that thing where he's like, no. And then he like, punch, and the bad guy's like, oh no, my dad, and all his friends are like, oh. That's how I feel listening to that song. And everyone's like, you're pretty close. And I think if you can get that across in just the music alone, that's a phenomenal job.
In some ways, you can flip the importance, and you can actually make the music the most important part versus the visual and gameplay elements, which I think is really interesting. Because all of these things kind of create this beautiful salad, but the visual and the auditory, I mean, if you flip them or swap them, they're probably equally as important.
It's fascinating to me that Final Fantasy XIV, Shadowbringers, the last, 25 minutes of that main story is like, there's a moment the music kicks in, and whatever's happening on the screen, yeah, okay, cool. But it's the moment from when the song kicks in at the end, where it's the song you haven't heard ever, that entire expansion, you've been waiting for it, and it pops in and you're like, oh, let's go! The music is carrying the load there. Yeah, what's happening on screen is cool, but it's the song that's like, now it's time to be hype. The song lets you know, okay, let's kick some ass. It's interesting to, talking about the moments, right? And a great example of the moment can be brought to life by the music, even though up until that point, maybe other music, there's been plenty of background music happening, but then like suddenly we're switching and now it's like, okay, this is a thing. I don't know if you've played any of like Darktide or Vermintide or any of those games. Those games sort of have like, all right, we're in this like crappy sewer, and like suddenly you hear a roar, and then the music kicks in, and it's an organ, and it's like, yeah, and it's like, okay, now we're doing a thing. And that is very similar to like rock turns into giant dragonoid monster creature. Yeah. Like, oh, now we're starting. And it's fascinating that is not something you necessarily saw in older games. Everyone knows or like right, all those songs like, oh, that's the water, that's the underground, even though really I guess that's kind of like an ambiance thing, but it also is the theme of the area, and so now you associate it. And I it's so interesting to me that those MIDI sounds produced roughly the same equivalent of emotion that a full-on orchestra could do at that time. And now to this day, those are some of the most famous game songs, like when you're talking about Sonic. That's just in people's heads permanently from that time period.
Well, it is interesting that we've essentially done a big, I don't know if it's an infinity loop or an Ouroboros, but we've certainly done a big loop from what, let's look at it this way. Like the 1800s, you have classical, earlier than that, even 1700s, Baroque, classical time period music. Then you move into Romantic. And then if you look at it now, I mean, some might even say that the 8-bit, 16-bit, maybe less so MIDI, that was the truest essence of what video game music is, because that's electronic music for an electronic medium. Whereas now, most of the things that we hear, now, of course, the beautiful thing about video games is that we span multiple genres within the same song sometimes. We have made this big loop back to that orchestral, classical compositional time period. Now, whether or not those pieces are as complex as Beethoven or Bach or whatever, this is an argument and a discussion I get into a lot with non-gamers who are in the classical music industry, where they're like, that's good, but is it as deep as Mahler? I don't know. I mean, that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means, does it have as much like texture and as much like, total language and all this stuff that is kind of like superfluous to the average person like me or you who just enjoys music. Either way, we've done this full turn back to a time period in history. And now that's the sound of video games. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and I would imagine that had they had the ability to, the original composers of 8-bit songs on the Nintendo or whatever would have preferred to have used non-electric instruments, but that's what they had, and that's what they worked with what they had. And a lot of it turned out really great, but you can see the transition when you go to like a concert that is in honor of Chrono Trigger, for example. And they take that theme that was at one point in time some like 1632-bit, great song, and now you can hear it in a completely different way, and you're like, wow, just as good as I remember it, you know?
My dad loved the music from the 70s because he grew up in the 70s. So it's almost like if you're not exposed to it, if someone, let's say someone has never had a PlayStation or any system, and today they start. And I mean, imagine the catalog, right? For a first-time gamer. Let's say it's like a 35-year-old and they're like, oh my God, I finally have a full-time whatever job or whatever. I can buy myself a console. Where do I start? And then imagine the world that opens, the musical landscape that opens. That's, I mean, like, but that being said, like, to pivot mentally, it's like, damn, that also means that there's like 40 plus years of stuff that this person will never discover because they didn't grow up with Super Mario or Legend of Zelda or, you know, stuff. So, you know, part of my process now is like, okay, well, how do I highlight this stuff? Not care about views per se, but how do I also recognize that 8-bit, 16-bit music is important, music from the 90s? You know, how do I package this in a way so that people that are, and I get complaints about it. It's like, oh man, all this old stuff. Where's this? Where's this? And it's like, hold on now. This stuff is valid just because it's not, they might, you know, the only thing they fear is you, or, you know, bury the light. You know, like the meme songs, which also meme culture has really taken those and like run with them. And it's like, that's fine. But like, you know, we can't lose the value of, I don't know, one of the more popular ones is the moon theme from DuckTales, right?
Love it. Classic.
If that wasn't a meme, it's
then
also
it wouldn't
beautiful.
have, people would not care as much.
Right. Or like any of the Folan Brothers stuff. Like that stuff is inexplicably good. But because it's on 8-bit, 16-bit hardware, your average modern audience, that's cool. But like Pictionary goes absurdly hard for no reason. Like we need to celebrate that stuff. You know, and so it's interesting to be now, you know, 3.5 years in and trying to, you know, I'm working on percolating on a video about like music through the world. Like what does music from Brazil sound like in a video game? Or like what is the most Japanese music you could find, or Chinese or whatever, you know what I mean? Because like it's interesting. It's interesting to hear what, you know, what something from what a composer's idea of Italy sounds like, you know? Anyway.
That's so fascinating because when you said, what does music from China sound like, right? In this context, my mind, because I'm completely warped by the fact that I love Dynasty Warriors, immediately went metal music, wailing guitars, hair bands, right? But then I thought, oh, it's fascinating to look at the progression of Dynasty Warriors because in the beginning, Dynasty Warriors was just wailing guitars and that was it. As it got into 8 and you know, like Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8 and Origin stuff, they added the like big drums. The very like, oh, you can imagine like 1,400 dudes all banging on these drums together. They've added a part of it where I'm like, oh no, I recognize this from other music that I've heard. And even though it is not necessary, it isn't just like a guy with a drum set. It sounds big.
You know, I kind of view gaming as its own umbrella with all the different spokes, you know, gameplay, strategy, guides, music, whatever. And then you've got music. But then music is funny because music also has like 18 different spokes. It's like an umbrella within an umbrella. I don't know. You know, I think sometimes we really get hung up on gameplay, but there is depth, more depth to games than just how it feels, even though that is probably the most important thing. There's nuance in all of it.
Before we wrap it up, is there anything else that you would like to, you know, express to everyone out there about music and games, about discovering new music, or about appreciating it?
It's just about asking questions and like feeling. And if the context is your vessel for doing that, I would encourage you to experience games in context and then listen to the music out of context. And if all you envision is that sequence and how you felt, that is so valid. And I think that's so reasonable. But you can also take music and listen to it and create your own context around it. Listen to a piece of music you love from a game on a rainy day, on a sunny day, on a walk, on the beach. Place yourself in these environments with the music and allow yourself to feel the reality that like you make the context of your life ultimately. And soundtracks don't have to be soundtracks for games. They can also be soundtracks for your life, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think also just discovery. Like there's so much good music out there. Go watch something, go listen to something, look up like, I don't know, the top 10 games from 1998. Just like whatever, like grab one of them and just listen to it. And if, don't even look up what it's about and just be like, okay, well, how do I feel about this? What do I think is happening? Who cares if you're right? And this is the other thing. People get so hung up on like, well, that's not what happens. Who cares? What matters is how you feel about what's happening, right? And that's what I try to advocate, and I'll keep advocating for as long as I am able to do this, because I feel like music is so special, and it's given me a lot of suffering, but also a lot of joy, and it's my like distinct delight to be able to have a platform to talk about it, and I feel very, 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 very lucky to be able to do it, because I just 3 years ago I never would have imagined.
It's a perfect way
so
to end.
philosophical enough for you, Jesse?
Oh, it was lovely. It was lovely. Thank you.
God, this guy's got his head so far up his own ass.
Exactly what I wanted.
Everyone will know now.
Marco, thank you. This was wonderful. Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure, Jesse. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much.